was talking yesterday about these wonderful people I know named Kim and Kim, Mr. Kim and Mrs. Kim, Kimberly. But they're married. They both go by Kim. And then you can tell them apart real easy because one looks like a lady and a mom. The other one's got a real bushy mustache. They were always good sports. I mean, come on. They know their first names are the same name, and they'd always play along with the joke as well. It's really easy to say confusing things about your interactions with them and be like, well, I was talking with Kim, asking if Kim was around, and Kim said that Kim would be around a little later. So I swung by to check in on Kim and see how Kim was doing. Likewise, you can kind of do the same thing with the name Mary in the New Testament. I think we got about 5 that we can say for sure are distinct Marys in the New Testament. I'm just going to scrub through a list that I put together here, and we'll see how many exactly we can come up with and if we can get them straight. But what prompts the conversation is that we're in Matthew 27, and Jesus has just died on the cross. A whole bunch of things have happened supernaturally. The centurion serves as a reliable witness, somebody who would be biased against Jesus theoretically, but he sees what's happened and the people who are with him, and they're like, whoa, surely he was the Son of God. So that's what a reliable witness looks like. And then right after that, Matthew gives us another list of reliable witnesses starting in verse 55. Many women were there watching from a distance. They'd followed Jesus from Galilee to care for his needs. So these aren't just people who even just like him and follow him around. They're kicking in. They're supporting the whole thing that's been going on. Among them were Mary Magdalene, Mary the mother of James and Joseph, or Joseph, depending on the rendering, and the mother of Zebedee's sons. As we discussed yesterday, there is a very intentional point of contrast happening here, I think, where the crappy witnesses from chapter 26 who just kept getting paraded in front of the kangaroo court clown trial that they had for Jesus under cover of darkness. They just kept cycling in. Like, technically, we need 2 witnesses. Get 2 witnesses in here. Have them keep saying stuff, throwing things against the wall until something kind of sticks that we think that we can run with. Finally, they get somebody to say what they wanted them to say, and they run with it, and Jesus goes to trial before Pilate, and he gets crucified and everything up to the moment that we're looking at here. That's what bad witnesses look like, according to Matthew, even though they are Jewish men who are perfectly suited to testify in a Jewish trial. Looks like, at least on one level, what Matthew's trying to do is say that alone doesn't qualify someone for being reliable. Look how this Gentile looked at it and testified very differently about Jesus, accurately about Jesus. Look how these women, who in many courts at that time would have been treated as invalid witnesses, or their testimony would have been reduced in weight. But look at how they see what's going on. Look at how they put their money where their mouth is. Look at how they're investing their time. Look how they're showing up when it's dangerous and difficult. All the dudes who on paper should be good witnesses because they've walked with Jesus and they're Jewish men. They're nowhere to be seen. They all scattered like rats. But these ladies, they're still here. So Matthew, again, is undermining this old cultural notion that if you got Abraham as your father and you're a dude, you're probably good to go. That's what the true family of faith looks like. But in keeping with Matthew 12, where Jesus is like, it's not really what the true family of faith looks like. But instead, those who are in the true family of faith are the ones who do the will of my Father in heaven, the will of my Father who sent me. Well, that's what this fumbling, nascent faith of the centurion looks like, and this much more robust, mature faith of the women that would prompt them to be there under great risk to themselves actually looks like. But who are these ladies? Well, the mother of James and John, the mother of Zebedee's sons, as she's referred to here, is not too tough to figure out who that lady is because she's appeared on screen already. Remember, she's the one who was like, hey, when you die, can my kids sit at your right hand and your left in eternity? She just doesn't get it at all. Well, apparently a lot has happened because she's here taking great risks. And if she was just superstitious or totally didn't get it, she might have scattered as well. But here she is. So, hey, props to her. Not much we can do about what we were yesterday, but there's a lot that we can do about where we're at right now. So I think that's a pretty cool redemption arc that we get for her. Mary, the mother of James and Joseph, or James and Joseph. This is where it gets tricky. Some people look at this and they're like, all right, that's got to be Mary, the mother of Jesus, because James and Joseph, that checks out in terms of Jesus' brothers. But it's pretty weird that here just a little bit later on, we're referring to that Mary as the other Mary. To me, Mary, the mother of Jesus, isn't the other Mary. She's kind of, the Mary. It doesn't make sense to me that Matthew would give her second billing. And I'm not even saying that because of all of the legacy of Mary that is built up over the years that is extra biblical in certain Christian traditions. I mean, no, really, obviously, she's highly favored. She's blessed beyond measure according to the New Testament. So it's possible that we're talking about somebody different. This is maybe Mary, another Mary, who is the mother of James the Less, a different James. But if that's the case, then we know from other gospel accounts that Mary, mother of Jesus, is definitely there because Jesus famously puts John in charge of her care moving forward. But then Mary Magdalene, she's not too tough to figure out because she gets named and features prominently around the New Testament, as we discussed yesterday. Disappointingly, there's some confusion about the backstory of Mary Magdalene, and I think I touched on this earlier on, but there was a sermon, a homily, that was given by Pope Gregory I in April of 591 AD. I'm not making any judgments or picking any fights here at all. The reality is that Gregory looks to have misread the story of Mary Magdalene when he penned this homily, and it's something that Roman Catholicism acknowledged in the probably 1960s as being mistaken, and they corrected the mistake here. The point of bringing it up is to explain why Mary Magdalene is so often associated with prostitution when there's no actual indication in the Bible or even church tradition prior to 591 that indicates that she had anything to do with that. Instead, the biblical text in Luke, I believe 8, indicates that she had been possessed by 7 demons and that Jesus had cast them out. It changed her life. And Mary, along with a couple of other ladies there at the beginning of Luke 8, are credited with following Jesus and using their resources to finance his ministry and what was going on. A remarkable move on their part. I read through the entire Easter homily that Gregory the Great wrote. It's available online, full text. You can go find that. It's pretty cool. It's good stuff. Gregory the Great was an amazing guy who was deeply concerned for the well-being of people's souls and who was very interested in the Bible, leaned heavily on the Bible in his writings and in his teachings. And like anybody who throws their life at that and dares to step in front of a microphone, literal or metaphorical, sometimes you're going to get things wrong. And I sure know how that feels. So God bless this guy who seems to have missed suggesting in his homily that Mary Magdalene was the unnamed woman who was a lady of the night, engaged in a sinful lifestyle in Luke 7. So Mary Magdalene was some kind of business lady who had been possessed and who then used her resources to fund this thing. Maybe there are other women following Jesus around. Maybe that lady who broke the alabaster jar was still following him around as well, but that looks to have not been Mary Magdalene. Mary of Bethany is the lady who is the sister of Martha and Lazarus. And in Luke, she's the one who sits at the feet of Jesus while Martha is preparing things. And then Martha complains, and then Jesus celebrates that Mary is reading the situation right. Again, playing off of that theme of, hey, if you knew who was right here in front of you, you would prioritize the right now. We saw a lot of that in the early half of Matthew. Then we have Mary, the wife of Clopas. This is probably that other Mary that we were talking about, the mother of James and Joseph. And some people through the years have suggested that her husband might have been brother to Joseph, earthly father of Jesus. So that would be the connection with Mary, mother of Jesus there. Then finally, in Acts 12, we find out that the mother of John Mark, a family that has some money in Jerusalem, that her name was Mary as well. I understand if that gets a little bit overwhelming and confusing. Thanks for going down the detail rabbit hole with me a little bit here. I hope that separates some of those names out and makes something that normally we just kind of mumble through because it's hard to know exactly what's going on. Hopefully that just makes it a little bit easier and a little bit more wieldy. But all of that is offered in support of really Matthew acknowledging the place of prominence these women deserve as faithful witnesses, faithful followers, faithful donors. Matthew now has given us a look at the people who provided funding for Jesus and were faithful in that to the end, and contrast that with someone who on paper looks like he should be a great guy but wasn't, that being Judas, who managed, or I should say willfully mismanaged that money along the way. I'm very happy to be able to say that this episode of the 10-Minute Bible Hour podcast is brought to you by Samaritan Ministries. Samaritan Ministries is a community of Christians who pay one another's medical bills without the use of insurance. Look, I know these people, they are all incredibly positive, forward-thinking, kind people. I'm sure they don't want me to go on some kind of screed about insurance and politics and government and regulation and how all of those things fit together. But the truth is, for me, I felt like at times that whole equation might not always have my family's best interests at heart. And when I looked around, I felt like, well, you know who does? The people who love me, the people I go to church with, even people I might not agree with about every single Christian thing, but we're trying to figure out what it looks like to be a kingdom citizen, to follow Jesus. And when I heard about Samaritan and the idea of partnering up with a whole community of people to pay each other's medical bills, that was very, very appealing. The idea is simple. You join Samaritan Ministries, you become a part of this community. After you receive medical care, you send your bills to Samaritans, and then they notify members to pray for you and to send money directly to you to help you pay those bills. We continue to be blown away at how affordable this is for our family and for other people who we know who are signing up, even as individuals. Monthly share amounts start at $99 for individuals or $263 for a family of 3 or more, which is kind of mind-blowing if you've looked at the economics of the medical world anytime lately. You can learn more about it by going to SamaritanMinistries.org/TMBH. Again, it's SamaritanMinistries.org/TMBH. Thanks in advance for considering checking that out. All right, thanks for hanging out with me. I'm Matt. This is the 10-Minute Bible Hour podcast. Let's do this again soon.